I guess they don't say it is because they had so many. I would figure they had so many wars with Islamic nation. That's my final answer.
In the next paragraph, it actually answers. It answers that question.
185 near the end of the
Linda's, why? Like, come on! I'm trying to get people to.
But the answer's there. Next paragraph down.
But Linda's, I mean, other people need to like do what you're doing, you know.
Well, egging people on.
Hold on, before we do that, don't look at the next paragraph, Wheeler. Go ahead, Wheeler. Say what you was gonna say before.
Oh yeah. Well, I can say it's not based on the next paragraph. It's based on being Islamic. So
go ahead.
I would say that it's not Western, but it is also Westernized because there's going to be two versions of everything. So what happened within history, if you actually study what happened between Timbuktu and the Western African societies that were Islamic at the time and did believe in the institutionalized scholarship, or perhaps they had their own version of spirituality that was Africanized in a way of teaching, but they also had their wars, their different people that were trying to come in and take over the way that they did things, the way that they learned, and use it to their benefit as far as the way that they understood it. So there's always going to be this basis of the original.
There's always a generality, right? In general, they are Western. And like for us, like in the Caribbean, like we're Catholic or Christians and stuff, right? We go, but when we got a problem, we go into the Babalao, right? We ain't talking and confessing to the priest. We're going to see that spiritualist, right? Yeah. And so in that sense, we haven't really embraced.
I mean, Alibaba is the same kind of thing, which is Islamic, you know, and he wouldn't have the basis of a Westernized thinking person.
But the Asili is still there. That's what makes it Western.
The Asili of it depends on who you're talking about, though, and
because even us practicing, even though we go see the spiritualists practicing this, you know, Catholic thing that's going on and doing their rituals. It's all part of the technology, right? The institution, the rituals. We're still engaging in those things.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying is separating, like using Hebrew people as an example, or Hebrew Israelites, separating that there were a culture of Hebrew people that did exist, that did have a culture, and they took upon that and then they used it for their Asili and changed it up as far as this. But there is a historical people as far as that had Hebraic cultures that more so mirrored Yoruba faith than it would have mirrored the Bible. So that's pretty much what's happened all throughout history, and it would be the same with the Islamic faith. There was an Islam that was not the Islam that we know.
You're muted.
I know what happened.
You muted him. I muted him. He doesn't have a thing to say, or maybe he does.
I think he does.
No, well, Islam is Western, and even though it came through us through Westernization, now how we choose to deal with it is different, right? But in general, this is accurate, you know. But we choose how we choose to deal with it, and even now, like even how Islam chose to, after the British went after and took over, and chose sides. The Africans that were Islamic Muslims chose sides with the British because they created that dichotomy. And this is
Yeah, they would be the same as the ones that choose to be Christian, though. They're going to be indoctrinated with the
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
that it was taken
yeah.
over, but there's still an Islamic that is not that. There's still a basis of an Islamic people that are not based on that Asili and that were Eastern.
Well, but the text,
that's why they don't put that in.
You using
it's just
text
like the
that you using text that comes from that Asili. You can't like study the text and believe it in entirety and say you're not Western, because the text is Western.
Not
the way
all
it describes
have that Asili.
Unless you're gonna take some books out.
What books out of what? What are you talking
out of the Torah and the New Testament as well?
Oh, I'm not talking about that. There's 160,000 manuscripts in Timbuktu Library currently that's
that we don't have access to, and we don't know.
Do with the Asili, but that has nothing to do with the Asili of the Western.
Yeah, but Timbuktu has those existed before Muhammad.
Exactly. So,
before Muhammad.
But there's like an Alibaba. There's different people that were Islamic that would be considered Islamic, but there was a basis of Islamic.
Mohammedanism came first. Mohammedanism came first. There wasn't no such thing called Islam. It was called Mohammedanism. Mohammedanism came first. Islam came. Terminology came later. Just even the terms Islam came later. It used to be called Mohammedanism because it's just like Marxism and Taoism, and that's what they used to. That's so in that sense. Now Timbuktu Library, that's way older than and the books there's way older. That's our stuff,
and they would have
had our stuff
exactly, and they would have had.
And we don't have access to that stuff. We don't have
we do have access to it. We do actually. We just
it's
are not
public.
learning the Arabic.
It's not public.
You can go there. You can actually go there.
Public meaning is not general. Yeah, you can go over there
and there's
you got the resources.
There's manuscripts here as well, and I think different libraries. I want to say I don't remember which library, but there's manuscripts here as well. But I was talking about of the institutional and the education, the way they would write and everything. There was a known basis that isn't westernized, that wouldn't have been westernized, that is before the westernized culture even existed. They just took upon that and changed it based on their view, just like they did Christianity.
How old do you think Islam is?
The original, as far as what they were.
Islam, we talk about Islam.
I don't know the actual start where I would say this is the where the definitive of the starting it. I just know of different people as far as from I think it would be 1100s or so.
Would you say?
And Islam, as far as the leaders,
you had Islam way before that in the 700s. Remember, the Moors went to Spain.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's even
711.
Yeah. So
I was talking about more of the institutions, the libraries, what she was saying about the scholarship.
The Moors had the institutions and
exactly.
the libraries.
Yeah.
They were the one who created a lot of that stuff. And the Turks.
Would you say the Moors are westernized?
Yep.
That's where I would not agree that they're westernized.
No, they are westernized. They got this Asili.
We'll have to agree to disagree.
No, there's no agreement. You could just, what the Asili is?
What the European Asili is?
Yeah.
Moorish Asili is.
Yes.
There would be two separate things as far in comparison. If you look at the people they call the Moors, they have this Asili. We're not talking about Moorish Science Temple, our brothers who are saying they're Moorish Science Temples. We're talking about the Moors that live in Morocco. Well, now present day, but not of the history.
And the Fulani, the Fulanis. A lot of the stuff that we're doing right now, the illness in Africa, is we adopted a Western Asili. And in Islamic Christianity was part of that adoption. It took over the whole continent. So there's no, you can't separate the two. Look at what in their Asili is. Look at how they define it. Look at the definition. Look at all the dichotomy, the separation that they create. The actions defines that stuff. It ain't a belief system. They're actions. The actions that occurred is what defines that. Their methodology, which is the Tamawoho, defines that methodology. Look at what the methodology they use overall. Now, are there good people? Yes. Just like us, we're trying to separate from this Asili, but we all have that Asili. You are a Westerner. I'm a Westerner. Buckets is a Westerner. Ubuntu is a Westerner. We can't separate ourselves from this. We are Westerners. Point blank. But we're trying to do the best thing we can and detox from this stuff. Because we're born into this stuff is so entrenched. This is why I like chapter 3. Because they created a universalism. Our diet, the way we behave, even the weed we smoke. This is some serious deep stuff that we're dealing with. This permeates in medicine, in science. This is where they talk about technology. I'm surprised she didn't dig deep in that area, but I think because she kind of deals with universality, and I think I'm hoping that the other chapters talk about that. Yeah, but this is a good build. This actually is a good build. I like this. I like the pushback. I love it.
I'm gonna move us along because it's 8:33.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna give Miss Wheeler a break because I think there's some absorption that needs to happen there. Because all of the status quo that we think we have is being questioned. Trust me, Miss Wheeler, I've gone through these discussions with Ra myself, so I know exactly what the feeling is, right? So just to move us along, in a summary of what we have just had a huge discussion about, the last paragraph, the colonies, which is what we're essentially talking about.
Yes.
I'm going to read it. The colonies were needed for the economic growth and development of Europe, which meant that the indigenous population had to be convinced that they had been born to serve their European masters and further would benefit from such servitude. What better way to make this argument than by selling them on the superiority of Christianity, which could save them from the fate of being irreligious?
Sorry, what page are you at?
They're on 185.
185,
Still
okay.
at the bottom.
Of being from the fate of being irreligious, sinful, backward, and black. Once convinced of this, the colonized begin to assimilate attitudes that help to prepare them to fit into European-style technological organization, because these attitudes are implicit in European Christianity. One mark of the new mindset is the concept of time. For the African, ordinary time is punctuated by sacred time, and time is valued according to what the community experiences. This is a perfect example. We need to talk about time. Therefore, we can speak qualitatively of different times because they are experienced differently. Christianization repudiates this concept as it demeans African culture and substitutes a secularized concept of uniform lineal time, suiting the more mechanized order which the European colonizers and neo-colonialists need to establish. Interestingly enough, there was a section in my life where I refused to wear a watch.
I still do.
And maybe I knew all of this, but I didn't know it. I just kept thinking, what is this time constraint to everything? What does it matter? Although tonight it does matter.
It is a tool to add to your anxiety.
It was so relieving not to be looking at a clock and a watch and delineating everything by the hours and the minutes and the seconds of what you have. So, you know, I'm sort of...
It forces you to be analytical. That's what time does when you're looking at a time. Like when you go into work, you're like, oh, and then, you know, you get busy and all of a sudden you're like, you start being robotic.
Yeah.
But
and in the United Nations, they got groups of people. They got a section where all the religious groups go, right? And they talk about from all different faiths, even like religious groups we never heard of, right? And they're lobbying the UN to get rid of this mechanical time and to use a natural way of doing time, which they talk about the lunar calendar or the sun calendar. Right. I mean, there's many proposals, but the major push is the lunar calendar. Excuse me. And so they themselves also recognize that this clock is a matter of fact, this is the type of thinking that created the concept of zero. Let me not go there because then it goes weird. Like,
we don't have enough time for that, right?
And look, I mean, honestly, I've put so much thought into this. I did some serious deep thinking about this stuff. And so, listen, I understand everybody's feelings because this shakes you. It shakes the very core how we believe, the very thing we believe. We've been lied to since birth, right? And so a lot of the things that we think really is solid is not. And so they control these small, like, the attitudes. Think about it. The very attitude that we possess, they control it. I mean, this is how entrenched this Asili is in. And it's like, man, and we don't even, I mean, the very fact that we don't even go to war because of this tells you we're Western.
Yeah, time to me is like the seasons were important, you know, like it's more like it controls how you feel and everything. Like it controls
like my wife, she's planting seeds. She got a little tomato. I'm like, oh, here she go with tomato.
That's what I mean. I've got my seeds already starting to sprout, right? So
how many people do gardening?
Well, we have a gardening family here.
Yeah, when you do gardening,
does it?
When you do gardening, any Ubuntu, Glenn, Wheeler, y'all do any gardening?
Yes.
No.
Gardening, listen, you should get into it. Like it makes you think differently. Like, because
real peaceful.
Yeah, and also you recognize the purpose of death, right? And the purpose of the phoenix rising and all that. Like death, life, you know, death brings life.
But also as African people, it gets you closer to nature and closer to what is really important in.
I mean, it helps
on many levels.
It helps Europeans.
Yeah.
Some of the more, like if you know somebody who do gardening and you talk about gardening, boy, they start sharing everything. You're like, yeah, you're like, oh, I didn't know that technique. I'll try that. They'll tell you all this information you want when it comes to that.
That's how it was for me. My coworker, man, when I first started and I told her I was interested in it, she just started bringing me some of everything out the woodwork.
Yeah.
But it was really peaceful and it was like raising a baby.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're having this conversation because on page 190, there's a section that talks about we are, who is it? It's talking about the 13th century natural theology in the Latin West.
Yeah.
Who is it? We are superior to nature. This is what somebody wrote. White, whoever White is, wrote, we are superior to nature, contemptuous of it, willing to use it for our slightest whim. To a Christian, a tree can be no more than a physical fact. The whole concept of the sacred grove is alien to Christianity and to the ethos of the West. For nearly 2 millennia, Christian missionaries have been chopping down sacred groves, which are idolatrous because they assume spirit in nature. I mean, it goes on and on, but the thing is, we are not in control of nature, as we can tell from all of the disasters.
The
They
volcano.
don't see it as
We
part.
don't see
They
it.
don't see it
The
as part of
volcano
us.
As part of us,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting.
So how do we calculate profit margins and economic efficiency without the mechanical time?
Well, you say when you talk about economical margins, right? You necessarily do you need time to calculate that?
If I'm paying an employee for 8 hours of work,
Mm-hmm.
I need him to be efficient for 8 hours. So I
Yeah,
need to calculate every minute.
Hold on, but you know, people do get paid salary too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing is as well, people work in tasks as well. And so tasks could be over whatever period of time. You have a task to do. And once you complete that task, you've done your job.
And it
So,
is,
you know,
They're talking about
now
changing the economic system too.
the whole thing is not necessarily cracking on the like. We need to recognize what it is and what it's doing to the planet, and what it's doing to people's health.
Yeah.
And what it's doing, like this whole rushing, it puts you into a level of stress that is not necessary.
Right. I was being facetious, but yeah, it's. But they don't care about your stress. Just
I know.
I could hire somebody else.
They only care about it when they gotta pay for your health insurance.
Yeah.
And they be like, "Oh, we're gonna get you a gym membership." Like, really? You think, wow, they really care about me. See the thought. This is how sick we are. They give you little bits, and you be like, "Oh, they care about me. I got a good job, pay for my benefits, all that." Now, can you really retire? Is it paying you based on inflation? Is it are you being successful? Do you got over $1 million? Like, well, how much you need for retirement? Like about 1.6 now they're talking about. Like, do we have that money? Do you have that money? Like, is your job paying you for that? So we really need a change. And COVID-19 was a test to see, it's forcing us to change, but we don't want to. Why? Because we want to maintain power. That's the only reason why they even creating these vaccines, to be the distractions to change. That's the major they don't care if we die. Think they care? They're like, we only need a few blacks to continue the creation process. So we don't get bored, but the rest of us, they don't care. So they ain't really trying to save nobody's lives. They want to maintain power, plain and simple. And we're coughing up the money. In the United States, they're gonna do a land grab soon. As soon as this COVID thing, they think they got it locked down, and make everybody pay that back rent, make everybody pay that back mortgage. And when people can't, it's gonna be nothing like, it's gonna be the same thing that happened.
It already started
in 2008.
Yeah,
it already started. I just read it today, where they was talking about all these big corporations are just buying up all these houses.
They're gonna be gobbling it. They did that. Wall Street did that in 2008.
Yeah.
So this is why we like, the most simplest solution was to lock everything down for 2 weeks. And because we say we couldn't, we didn't. Not that we couldn't or they didn't want to, we didn't even make a demand for it. And so now things are gonna happen that we're not gonna like, and we ain't gonna do nothing about it.
Yeah.
And then we
Because-
want to say we can't say we don't. This facility is not doing its job. We're operating on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sunshine.
It's just I was just thinking what you were saying, like the changes that people don't want to make, but the COVID this because of power, you know, but they're being forced to make because the government overrule small decisions. For example, some people for years of their career, they try and prove and put facts out there how it'd be beneficial to work from home.
Yeah.
Lower stress level, commute time, better timing for child care, whatever, what have you. And it's impossible. No, can't be done. Impossible. That's not the way this business is run. And then COVID hit and is like stay home order, and it's like, okay, we got this.
Yeah. Which proved there was something nefarious.
Yeah.
And now they're saying stay home because their butts were afraid they may catch something.
So
and still the staying home part. Why you think they trying to force the kids to go back to school in the United States? Like really? Like I'm like, what the hell these kids are learning in school in the US of any value?
Yeah.
And then they're gonna be, you know, what's gonna happen is people gonna be like, people gonna wake up, and they are waking up. They are starting to think like, why is this going on? You know, and I hope enough people wake up that it changes the pendulum. The pendulum starts swinging the other way.
This is the stuff. Oh, we still haven't finished chapter 2.
I think it will be lucky if we finish chapter 2 tonight, because we still have 2 more sections. Well, 1 more section.
That religion and power. That's all the same thing that we're talking about. Religion and power.
Yeah.
Because me and Niyami talked about that the other day. How the family.
Listen. Okay.
Record this. This is the apology.
I started watching that. It's interesting.
Oh.
The family.
Yeah, the family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this pursuit for world dominance and power, this is something that we already have talked about. So I mean, I don't. If y'all want to go into it, I'm down. But we talked about
section here.
Yeah.
Okay.
What section are you talking about? The
religion and power.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the record versus the apology. I thought you were talking about that one.
Oh.
The next one. Hint, hint.
You want to deal with that one?
Nudge, nudge. Miss Wheeler.
Yes.
Are you up for reading the first paragraph of that section?
Okay. The cultural and historical record of European experience clarifies the interdependent relationship between the institutionalization of European Christianity and the European imperialistic endeavor, as well as the compatibility of Christian ideology with European cultural nationalism.
Anybody got any opinions on that?
What page was that?
That was in the first paragraph of record.
191.
191.
191. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Now we talked about the Pope, even dividing up the planet, try to settle the beef between Spain and Portugal. We talked about those were conversations we had in the past. Anybody? Ooh.
Oh.
Excuse me. Sorry.
A sneeze.
That was acid reflex.
Oh, too much information, Yemi. Too much information.
Sorry.
I mean, this section is just like, anybody got anything for this section?
Well, I like the paragraph, page 192, where Niebuhr introduces
Employs what is
yeah.
employs what is perhaps the most ideologically effective tool and manifestation of European cultural imperialism in his use of the concept of universalism. The subtle but critical issue raised by his claims is a philosophical ideological one. It lies partially in the implicit value dichotomy he makes between nationalism and universalism. Nationalism, in his view, is bad and represents negative particularism in which self-ego is a source of motivation, sentiment, and behavior, while universalism is its positive opposite and represents the ability to identify the universal good with all people, i.e. takes an abstraction called humanity as its inspirational source.
This is a good place to end the night, Ra, because this is not what the next chapter is all about, is it really?
No, I mean the next chapter is about Christianity, and like, I mean, this is no different than the previous chapters that we have read.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not new information. She's just reiterating, like, similar to what how Judaism, nationalism, and then Christianity became more imperialistic by adopting a more everybody could be saved and was able to open it up. So this is no different.
Yeah. Well, this is where she introduces that universalism.
Universalism.
Yeah.
So now everybody could be a part of it, and this type of thing she deals in chapter 3.
Yeah.
And she deals with it in arts, but it's applied in everything. Like the universal, like Linda's could tell you about healthcare, how they they apply it everywhere, but some of that stuff to Linda's doesn't make any sense, and she has a point. But and the fact is, they won't even want to hear it.
Nope.
They won't even want to hear it when you mention it. And
but
so
it's interesting the description of universalism here, and then you look at what it's all about in the next chapter.
I think it's the same. I think it's same thing that's being applied in a different.
It's applied in a different.
Yeah.
It's applied in this time. It's applied in the arts. Like we talked about the religion, but now we get in the particulars, like the cross, the white Jesus, the like even how we do the sign of the cross. I mean, how we do the rituals, art in general, how we view the beauty becomes like white based. They rationalize beauty. They made beauty analytical. That's what chapter 3 deals with. So it's like this deals with how it was being spread and used as a
religious tool,
conquering imperialistic thing. But now this is part of maintenance. This is the ongoing indoctrination.
Right.
It's ongoing and never always mutating and changing for whatever it needs to change.
Yeah, so it has to keep going in order. It's like it keeps on itself. It has to keep going in order to keep.
As they suck in your power, they get you distracted. It's a magic trick.
It's kind of like fuel, right? Like you need fuel to keep the fire burning. So you just keep adding fuel.
It's interesting how she seems repetitive throughout the book, but she's repetitive in different. She's like.
Well, I think repetitive is the wrong word. It's more consistent. She's consistent.
Well, yeah, true.
It's consistent.
Repetitive, consistent.
No, repetitive is like if she's writing the same
has
thing
a
over and
negative
over again.
connotation.
It's the negative right there, right?
Consistent. She's way consistent with her message.
Because she's bringing it back. It's
Yeah.
you know, it's like we're looking at this like a dot, and then it explodes, boom, and so now it's growing.
Yeah.
But we still have to know the source.
So can I ask? You want to say something?
No,
You can ask and say.
No, I was just gonna say is that like what she's doing really is what's being done to us. Like over all these years from birth to now, we've been always reinforcing that Asili in us, right? So now she's trying to do the very same thing in a book, trying to reinforce something different.
Well, I mean, it's a necessity though. Like,
yeah, you know, so you gotta keep at it. You gotta keep at it all the time.
So my question, you see, we're married for a reason, because my question follows what he just said. How many of us on this call, with even what we've done so far with the book and the discussions that we've had, how many of you, us, throughout the day can say to ourselves, oh my God, Asili.
Yeah.
Like,
so let me rephrase the question. How many times on average throughout the day does that come to the front of your mind when you watch the news, you see interactions? Yeah. How many times? How many times? I'm gonna do a little quiz here. Less than 5 times a day.
Oh, okay.
Does that thought come to your head when you see, read, talk?
You're keeping going, or less than 5?
Nobody,
nobody bought at less than 5, so you gotta keep going up.
Less than 10.
I mean,
5 or more.
And everything we talk about, even if we talk among ourselves, you know it's gonna happen. So we'll talk about Bitcoin and the subject will come up.
You know, it's funny because
we'll be like rapping and shit. It just comes up.
During my day, all I go is, oh my God, Yurugu. Everybody wants to know what that word means.
It's true, yeah.
Anyway, listen, we're doing good. It's 8:58.
Time again, right?
So, you know, I'm sorry.
So if you want to, if you do want to deal with chapter 3, we can.
No.
I'm just putting it out there. The buckets can leave. The buckets can leave.
Come on, I need backup. JB, last week you said, let's move on to next week. I need to hear that again.
I already checked out. I'm sorry. I already checked out of the meeting. I'm back.
Yeah. He didn't take his nap. Hey, JJ.
Next week, chapter 3.
By the time JJ is 5, he gonna be busting every 5-year-old. Like, yeah. He'll be definitely Black Power. You can see like JJ be like, yeah, he gonna have all of the 5-year-olds like telling the teacher, you try to sell us an Asili on me.
We can do the Harambe's just so that the kids can get used to the communal let's pull together bit. Not tonight, but maybe.
No, but do everybody got anything to say? Linda's asked a question in terms of how these past readings, how it has affected you. I think we should answer that question and then we bounce.
It affected me in different ways when I'm at work. And dealing with European people, it's like they don't want to say anything to you unless they need your help with something, and then they take what you teach them and make it seem as if they knew all the stuff already.
Yeah.
So I go through that every day.
Yeah.
Nayami, what about you and your wife?
What's the question?
How these last readings, how it affected you, and how, you know, in regards to your everyday life?
Well, with us, we kind of point point out when somebody's using the silly.
So y'all using a tool of blaming each other like that?
Yeah.
So it did the opposite. It created a dichotomy.
Remember, this book club does not have marriage counseling as part of it, right?
Yeah.
So be careful.
All we could do is call 911.
Yeah.
Oh, Veronica, what about you?
Okay, Veronica.
Oh my goodness. From morning to night. In my teaching, when I'm doing my planning and I have to read through materials, right? On our Sundays too, in the morning, 10 o'clock, we're listening to the service, church service, the whole household. Like it is, and I just see it every single minute of the day. The book. When I'm reading my chapters, it's like, yeah, and I think I speak out a lot. I started reading it aloud, so I've got my mother listening in. I got my
So it's gonna be contagious, yo.
I tell you, it is.
What about you, Sunshine?
Yeah.
Me, oh my goodness. There's so many things that I think about through the day. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, you know, this isn't just gonna be like flip the light switch. Okay, I got it. Move. Like I'm out of this silly. But then there's sometimes where it's like you understand the silly so much that you're like, it's almost like you want to do eye for eye. Like, okay, I got you, so I know how to get you in your own silly. But then it's like, no, don't use it. You need to turn your back on this and like build yourself to be where you're supposed to truly be at.
Well,
So
where you want to be, where you want to be at, you know, because you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I know I said it before the beginning of the group, but usually being in the group, it reinforces the reading this specific book. This book is not easy. This book requires a collective. It can't be done alone. So when I'm in the group, that's when more of it kind of starts to really make sense.
Yeah, and honestly, this individualism of studying is a westernized thing. Like, when I went to Ghana, everybody studied together. There was different groups of people, study groups, and I'm like, what they doing? And so what I did was, like, I remember studying a group and I did comprehend a lot more. I was able to absorb a lot more when I study in the group.
Yeah.
And a book like this definitely requires a book or like a class, somebody to, you know, people to talk and engage.
Yeah, I found even with reading, when I read it out loud, somehow I get more out of it than when at night I'm reading through a chapter. It's hard to, you know, shout out or say, hey, listen to this part or something, you know. But I find it is that kind of book where you read it out loud and then you talk about what you just heard or something, you know. It's not just to be taken like, you just can't just read it in silence. I find I've got to do a lot of out loud reading when I'm reading this book.
I know this one is hearing me reading all the time because I reading
loud.
it to yourself, it like it doesn't register unless you read it aloud.
Out loud, I find that too.
I keep thinking he's talking to somebody. I go, you're talking to me? No, I'm just reading.
Yeah, Yemi, what about you, Yemi?
I would say for me this week it was like the first time I hung out with my family for the first time in like a year or so. I'm like, even though I come from them, we are so different. Like,
it changed you.
The way they talk, I'm like, I came from these people. I'm like, oh yeah, that's my pops. And that's my mom. But when we have conversation, I'm like, yeah, even though it's not so, I can't seem to convince them like they still like sticking to their guns. So I'm not here to change your mind. You can't.
The Celia is the crack. They're like,
like for example, yesterday, my mom, even I told her last week that I'm not taking the vaccine until everything calm down. I'm not taking it. Well, I'm not ready to take it. She asked me again yesterday, why don't you wanna take the vaccine? Just take it. Why you so stubborn? You don't wanna. I'm like, I've been through the medical things. I know. I don't want nothing to poison me again because I've been through the medical. I thought even though my sisters are doctors, I don't trust Western doctors. I'm sorry. I told her, and then she said, oh, just take it. Don't, you know, politicize it. Don't listen to what they're telling you on TV. I said, ma, I don't watch TV like that anymore. So she's still trying to convince me to take the and then okay, I'll take it when it's my turn to take it. I'll take it. Just to make her stop, just make her to leave me alone. It's like okay, when it's my turn, I'll take it. So
or you could say you've taken it, Yemi, and just cut the conversation right there. Just say you took it.
But then I've come to tell you that you've been rude. So
It'll be our secret.
Either way, you can't win either way.
Miss Wheeler.
Yes. So I would say as far as with the reading so far, it's just been really good. Because I would say I've been on this process for 5 years. The things that she says, I've been saying for such a long time. And it kind of led me to Dr. Baina Bello, which I follow her. And I go through all her lessons, and this is where she always talks about as far as extracting the European thought out of things to get the Africanness that's left that is our culture, that was our culture from the beginning. So like this is just reinforcing that.
I see.
Yeah.
Very good.
Mr. Buckus.
Yeah, for me, it's always like top of mind kind of thing. Like it's always there, and so every time you do something, it just kind of flashes across, and you kind of have to acknowledge.
Flashing. Yurugu.
Well, Lindis, you did yours. You want to say anything else in terms of that?
No, I want Eugene has something else to tell you, because you told me the other day that the best part, well, not the best, one of the good things about the book club is what?
Couples. Is it the couples I said? And community. Is that it?
There you go.
Well, there's
Definitely.
To me, the community is for me at least, it's one of the more important things to me. Like,
and here I thought it was me. And here I thought it was me. Y'all breaking my heart. I thought it was me. I thought my charismatic charm.
No.
I love the.
It's the 2 hours of the week that he gets to talk to other people and not just have me on his case the whole time. But but seriously, that's one of the things that he said from day one. He actually, I'm speaking on his behalf because he said it, he didn't say it the way he said it now. To me, he said, one of the best things about the book club is that you get to talk about the book with other people. And the communication in the group is what he actually looks forward to on a Sunday night after dinner.
Yeah. I like seeing the families, you know what I'm saying? I like seeing the little kids with the afros running around and because to me it's like that's the whole reason why we're doing this, right? Like we need a fight, and so the kids will be better than we are. You know, they have to be better than we are. We have to put them in a position to be better than what we had, right? Because it's there's no